New Blue Geek asked a very simple question, and I'm going to crowdsource the response. What would it take to make you switch to Android? And this is a question asked of me. So what do you think it's going to take for me to switch from an iPhone to an Android device? What is it going to be? Because I don't know. I can't think of something that would give me a reason to switch. And let me give you some perspective. I'm definitely willing to switch. Absolutely. I've done it in the past. I've switched platforms like you would not believe. But my motivation for switching is always when there is a pain point. If you rewind in time, a few years back, I switched from using Windows as my primary operating system to using Mac OS X, and then living in both worlds. But the reason I switched to Mac OS X is because Windows Vista was so god-awful, I didn't feel like I had a choice. I thought Microsoft had abandoned us. I mean, they kind of did. I mean, look at what they did with the Ultimate Extras program. I mean, they pretty much, they didn't even pay attention to the people who loved Windows most. They bounced back with Windows 7, and of course Windows 8 looks to be even more fantastic than 7. They're doing their best. But it was the pain point of Windows that pushed me to an alternative. And I'd never even considered it before. So you would almost have to talk about pain points for one device to even think about what it's going to take to switch to something new. I mean, to sit there and say, it has a better camera. Well, better is relative, and this camera doesn't suck. There's a bigger screen. Well, I kind of like the Retina display. It's not a pain point for me. Well, there are different apps. Yeah, but, you know, I get a free app of the day on the Kindle Fire, and that's fine for me. Many of the apps are cross-platform. So what is a massive pain point for the iPhone? I mean, for anybody. You know, I suppose if I have dropped and cracked this thing a few times over, I may get tired of it. That would be a pain point that would get me to switch to an Android device. It isn't cost, because I get mine relatively cost-free because I sell my old iPhones. I buy everything, trust me, at least from Apple. And, you know, I basically get it for the price that I sell the old one for. So it's not really money that's a pain point either, at least as far as the iPhones are concerned. So what are the pain points? What's it going to take? And I'm going to go on record. It is an absolute possibility for anybody to say, I'll never do that because this. They're lying. They're lying. You can't get locked down into a frame of mind that works today and think you're going to be in the same frame of mind 5 years from now. The industry changes far too much for you to, I mean, that's so short-sighted. iTech HD says a greater experience. The problem with that is that greater is relative. Like, what's greater for you is not necessarily greater for everybody else. It's kind of... Now, see, this is an interesting point. Custom ROMs. And this is Steve K. 1993 brings this up. We wrote an article on Locker Room about this the other day and did a separate video on it as well, which was very well received. Thank you for sharing and providing great feedback. I think if there was a pain point for me, I could get around it potentially with jailbreaking iOS, which I have not done yet. I haven't even gone that far. It would be the operating system. If I felt the operating system wasn't giving me as fantastic of an experience as another one, I would be inclined to switch. Of course, iOS is updated constantly. I mean, the latest iOS version goes back, you can get it installed on devices that are like 2 or 3 generations old. So they update the OS as time marches on. When that OS no longer gives me what I need, that may be the time for Android. And possibly even then, a custom ROM. You might remember when it was made official that, you know, the idea of jailbreaking wasn't illegal. I thought, and I still believe, Google should be working on a version of Android to run on this hardware. That would be cool. And I think we've seen like bits and pieces of that, but nothing that's really done very wonderfully. because the hardware works with the software very, very well. And unless there's a better experience than what I've had, because remember, better is relative, I don't think I'd see myself switching. It takes pain to even consider moving. It's the lack of momentum. I have no reason to switch. Give me a good reason, and everyone's going to have a different perspective on this. To me, it's about what's painful now, and I'm not really in pain. And if you are, you should absolutely switch from anything you might be using to something else, because life is too short for you to be in pain and to use a device that you just don't like. If you don't like the device you're using, if you don't like the iPhone, switch. If you don't like Android, switch. If you don't like Windows Phone 7, switch. You are in control. You have that power. What's good for you may not be good for somebody else. Listen to your heart. And if your heart's telling you that what you're using today isn't making you happy, switch. That's a general statement. I'm not talking about any one vendor or another. You know my choices. You know my perspectives. This isn't about making someone feel bad about the choices they make. It's about understanding we all make different choices. And you know what? There is no right or wrong.